Thousands of attempts, hundreds of people witnessing the event live. A single player had the most anticipated Geometry Dash level at his grasp. With hundreds of hours of work threatened by its countless controversies, could this player finish the level off? It was 2015. A player named Ryan had just verified one of the hardest levels ever created. The fact that this was completed was beyond belief. Compared to a normal level, Bloodbath was unimaginably more difficult. However, Riot's next move would certainly surprise some. This is the yatagarasu, a three-legged crow whose story had been passed through many generations. Eventually, the story passed on to a Geometry Dash player known as Riot. Riot was considered to be the best of the time, and was looking to further cement his legacy by creating the ultimate challenge. However, he couldn't do it alone. So he called the #1 creator, Vyprin, to help him gather players to make a level that would overshadow all the competition at the time. Over the coming months, many joined the project and they would set off on a journey to change the game forever. But you may be wondering why people decided to push a game like Geometry Dash this far in the first place. Despite most being unable to even get 2% on these levels, players have always pushed the difficulty with the in-game editor. With this editor, you can make any difficulty you desire. Except it wasn't always like this. When the game was initially released, many players preferred easier creations. Levels that are deemed too difficult would get disliked to oblivion. However, this would all change when the developer and RobTap released a new hardest difficulty called Demon. Players would quickly realize that demons were incredibly diverse, leading to the community making 5 tiers of the demon difficulty, with the hardest being the Extreme Demon. This difficulty was so scarce that Bloodbath was one of the only 3 Extreme Demons uploaded onto the servers. Ryan wanted to be known as the best player by completing the 4th Extreme Demon. Could he do it? Top players were terrified of the inbound yatagarasu. From what the community had seen so far, it was everything that made Bloodbath difficult, but way longer. While players were waiting for the level to be finished, some drama started to brew. A controversial player by the name of Cyrillic snatched a copy of the level and leaked it to the public to play. While the copy was unfinished, several YouTubers would upload replays of it onto their accounts. Before the level had even been finished, it had already undergone massive misfortune. At the time, Riot and Vyprin must have felt pretty irritated by this, but they could have never guessed that Cyrillic leaking the level would end up being a blessing in disguise. But before that could happen, it would be completed. After many months of hunting for creators and finishing this masterpiece, Vyprin would showcase the entire creation on YouTube for the world to see. Instantly, the fears of many players competing against Riot became true. If Riot was somehow able to verify yatagarasu, then no other level would come close in difficulty. With the level finished once and for all, Riot would begin his conquest of trying to slay this beast. But as Riot began playing, he felt overwhelmed. It was near impossible for him to get a good run, and the level's insane length made it extremely stressful. He had massively underestimated the difficulty of it. Sure, he had verified Bloodbath, but was this really in his skill range? To make matters worse, Riot would develop finger pains, which would make playing the game very unhealthy. Tainted by the previous controversy, the sheer difficulty, and his pain, Riot would end up dropping the level for good. Fortunately, however, the level wasn't done just yet. The yatagarasu would once again ascend into the spotlight when it was announced that Riot passed the verification onto Serve. Serve was a special player to say the least. After dying at 96% on Bloodbath, he would lose his biggest chance thus far against his rival, Quasar. While both players had been racing on Bloodbath for months, Quasar would end up completing the level first, and would roast Serve while at it.
It's over! It's over! Get wrecked, Serve! Get freaking Serve!
Serve was ruined. He had been dissed in front of millions of people. To Serve, yatagarasu was seen as a way to one-up Quasar, and so the quest began. Earlier that year, one of yatagarasu's creators, Cyclic, was exposed as a hacker. After the scandal, he would promptly be kicked out, and his part deleted. With an empty part, Riot would decide to invite a creator named Mannix to a team to create a part for the level. But just like Cyclic, Mannix would undergo a big controversy. Riot would accuse Mannix of stealing assets from another level, with Mannix refusing to delete them. After many back and forths, Riot felt betrayed. Yatagarasu was supposed to be his masterpiece, but this part was untouchable. In the midst of the drama, he would decide to finally kick Mannix out of the collab, with Mannix going on to reuse his part in Bloodlust. After this, Viper would decide to host an event. Thousands of creators in the community would line up to compete against each other. All they had to do was finish off this part. Weeks passed as more and more creations would be submitted. Famous creators like LaserBlitz would participate, but in the end, there could only be one victor. And that was Abstract Dark, an up-and-coming creator who would finally finish off the yatagarasu. With the level being finished, the completion process could commence. Serv began frequently streaming the level on Twitch, and would quickly progress into the level. Since he was the second person ever to complete Bloodbath only behind Quasar, many in the community deemed Serv a good enough player for this task. But despite being one of the best players, the level felt unrealistic. It fueled him with rage, and playing it felt like a chore. And on one specific stream, something interesting would happen. While practicing Jazor's part early on in the level, the sheer difficulty of the level made playing it impossible. Blinded with rage, Serv would begin deleting Jazor's part. But not only did he exit the level, but he saved it in its completely destroyed state. Serv had just deleted the entire part from Yatagarasu, with no way of getting it back.
No, I didn't mean to do that. I didn't mean to exit out.
Fortunately, there would be a few backups left on the servers, but some speculation of Jazor having to rebuild his part would float around. To many players, it seemed like the level couldn't stop being surrounded by controversy. And just like Riot, shortly after, Serv would become the second ever player to drop out of the verification. There have been many overly ambitious levels in the past, often made by creators that don't understand the true difficulty of their creations, leading to even the best of players to give up on these levels. Some of these creations simply die, while others go down a more controversial path, a nerf. You see, when a level is hyped up as the hardest level for months, many expect it to be that difficulty. When you promise something for ages, it's seen as unhonorable to falsely deliver on your creation. The future of the yatagarasu seemed dim, and many wondered if the next player selected could actually pull through. After all, hours upon hours went into creating the level, and if it didn't get verified, it would all go to waste. So with the pressure of both the creators and the community, a player by the name of Trusto would pick up the yatagarasu in hopes of finally slaying the crow. Trusto was a near perfect player for the job. He notoriously dethroned Bloodbath by verifying Sukup in Hell, a level that despite its short length, was still hard enough to be top 1. The sudden change between a fast-paced behemoth to an endurance-based challenge seemed to be an issue, but luckily he would be prepared. Trusto had gained months of experience from practicing Sarlik's leaked copy of Yatagarasu. The whole incident really was a blessing in disguise, as Trusto was able to get runs like 62 to 157%, completely shattering everyone's expectations. Despite being only the 8th victor of Bloodbath, he looked like he could finish the level off. However, the three-legged crow would once again find itself in one of the most heated Geometry Dash dramas yet. Trusto would once again begin playing the level, quickly getting 63%. All he had to do was connect his two biggest runs into one, but despite the progress, slaying the yatagarasu would still prove to be a challenge. No part was more challenging than Michigan's. Just like in Bloodbath, Michigan's part in yatagarasu was a massive choke point. On stream, he would make a move that would shock everyone. The sudden spike in difficulty caused many devastating fails. To him, a completion with the unnerved state of the part felt unrealistic. Fed up with the unbalanced nature of this part, Trusto would begin nerfing it. The chat urged him not to, but it was too late. Despite moving some spikes a few pixels higher, it was enough for most people to turn against him. Many believed that the level wasn't even top 1 anymore, but Trusto kept pushing. Despite all the pressure to revert the changes, it had been over half a year since it was first previewed. He couldn't let it fall into the trap of other unreleased levels. Either the yatagarasu would remain unbeatable, or Trusto would have to finish it off unhonorably. Eventually, Trusto got what he wanted, and finally passed Michigan. After this, an arrival at the end was certainly possible. As he entered the final section, thousands of eyes laid upon him. While some were devastated by the update, everyone still wanted him to succeed. All he had to do was not mess up. But that didn't matter. Trista was getting extremely consistent, and it was only a matter of time before we'd have to challenge the level's obscene difficulty for the final time. Trusta had slain the Yatagarasu, and the level would place on the top one spot, but upon the placement, many arguments would ensue. Players were unsure of the level's true status. A creation named Sonic Wave had just recently been verified, easily being placed at the top. While Yatagarasu is 3 minutes long, Sonic Wave had much harder gameplay, even if it was a minute shorter. After weeks of discussion, Yatagarasu's true placement would be determined. Number 2. With the level being placed at the second spot, many were disappointed. Players throughout the community believed that Trusta had killed the level's legacy. But it didn't matter that the level was placed at number 2 after all. The level had carried Bloodbath's legacy to new heights, with both levels grossing millions of downloads. This legendary level would inspire millions of players to continue slaying some of the hardest levels ever created. The highly anticipated release of Yatagarasu would mark the end of an era.